straight money over blitzes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Money Over Blitzes podcast. This is now episode 4, actually, for those keeping track. My name's Kyle. If you're new, welcome in, first off. And secondly, get ready because football season's right around the corner, folks. The NFL draft is actually a couple weeks away, and I'm 100% here for it. I was watching the Alabama spring game yesterday, and it was good just to see football, live football on TV. So it's coming right around the corner. I'm here for it. I'm here for you guys and to push out some content for you guys, break down some receivers in this episode, and yeah, let's get into it. And while we're here to talk about some of these incoming receivers into this class, I do find it important to talk about what happened last week and kind of highlight the legend that will be Julian Edelman in Patriots lore as he decides to leave the game. So last week, reports had started to come out that the Patriots had actually terminated Julian Edelman's contract, and then it came out that it was due to a failed physical, and then shortly thereafter, it came out that Julian was actually deciding to retire, and he had posted a video on his social media accounts, basically stating, his thankfulness for the Patriot organization, for the crafts, the coaches, the fans, of course, and just basically stating that he came into the game with the mindset that he wouldn't leave until the wheels fall off, and eventually, of course, those wheels did in fact fall off. Of course, he was dealing with some knee injuries, tore his ACL a couple years ago, and didn't finish last season. I think he played about half a season, just about, uh, with those injuries. So his body basically kind of failed him in that sense, and he just wasn't able to perform the way we were so used to seeing him perform on a regular basis. So he had a great career as far as I'm concerned. 620 catches, he had 6,800 receiving yards and 36 touchdowns, of course, all with the Patriots over an 11-year career. Did make 5 Super Bowls with the team. He was part of 3 of those wins and was actually the Super Bowl 53 MVP. For those who remember that game against the Rams, he was instrumental in consistently moving the chains in that game and just moving the offense forward. And what was really a big defensive struggle, he played a vital part in them ultimately winning that game, of course. But beyond just that game, the numerous playoff moments that he was a part of, I think of the catch at the against the Falcons in the 28-3 game where he came out of the scrum from 3 other defenders, tip ball situation, and he was the one that came up with it. And now that play lives in NFL history as just such an amazing play. I think of the leading touchdown, the pretty much the game sealing touchdown for the Patriots against the Seattle Seahawks in that Super Bowl, and how iconic that was and how great of a game that was, to even just other moments. He had a touchdown pass against the Ravens in an AFC, I think it was the divisional game or the conference championship game, to Amendola, and that, of course, was a big moment in that game and led to a victory there. So just so many numerous memories that I will keep near and dear to my heart as a Patriots fan, of course, but that really just live on in playoff history and are great for the team and just for the kind of the NFL's history in terms of what'll just be really memorable. So for me, he's a lock as a Patriots Hall of Famer. He did so much for the team, of course, with the help of Tom Brady as well, but just for the team itself in delivering so much success, he was instrumental in so much of that. So I think he deserves a spot in the Patriots Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, I don't think that his resume says enough in terms of making a case for an NFL Hall of Fame, however. You just look at some of the other receivers in the NFL Hall of Fame, whether it's a Jerry Rice or Calvin Johnson or Marvin Harrison type, any of those kind of guys, their resumes and their stats really kind of speak for themselves. Whereas Julian really doesn't have those gaudy stats that you would really look for, or his mere presence on the field didn't really inflict all kinds of fear for another defense. He did change the slot position to an extent. He gave that position really a solidified role, especially within the New England offense. But I just don't think his resume, unfortunately, is going to be strong enough for him to get into the NFL Hall of Fame. But of course, he's always going to hold a special place in my heart for all the success that he helped create for the Patriots and all the iconic moments that he helped create in the playoffs. So, absolute great guy, gritty guy, really tough, great teammate from all I could tell. He played through a ton, basically played until his body just wouldn't let him do it anymore. So I wish him the best in his retirement, and let him live the rest of his life in peace while he still can. Not a lot of players can honestly say that, by the time they retire, their body is just too beat up to where they can really have a great quality of life, whereas he should still be able to do that. So if he's happy with the decision, I'm happy for him, and I just wish him the best in his retirement. So without further ado, let's get into this receiving class that's coming in this year. We're going to go over 5 guys today, but overall, generally speaking, it's a pretty deep class. It's a little bit of a different class compared to last year. There's quite a few more undersized guys compared to last year. A lot more of that profile is the slot type compared to last year, but they still have talent. This class still has talent within its own right. So let's get into the first guy, and that's going to be Jamar Chase out of LSU. Chase stands at 6 foot 1 inch tall, weighs 200 pounds. Of course, he opted out this last year with all the COVID stuff that was going on, but in 2019, through 14 games, he absolutely set the world on fire in that prolific offense. He had 84 catches, almost 1,800 yards, and 20 touchdowns, so of course, ridiculous numbers by anybody's standards, but kind of speaks to the talent that was Joe Burrow and also Chase's talent in and of himself. So for me, he has the best body control for a wide receiver in this class. He is just able to kind of contort his body any which way he needs to in order to make either a sideline catch or some kind of crazy catch in traffic. You put the film on this kid, and some of the catches he makes is just ridiculous in terms of what he's able to do at the catch point with the DB draped all over him. He's just able to out muscle anybody that he's lined up against, and it's just a great thing to see for him. So, like I said, he consistently wins at the catch point. You have a quarterback throw him a jump ball, odds are he's going to come down with it just with his length and his physical ability to just kind of outmuscle whatever defensive back he has up against him. He also ran a 4.38 40-yard dash at his pro day. So pro day numbers this year, I think we've talked about it before, but take it for what it's worth. That they're hand timed, so it's not exactly perfect timing with a laser timer at the combine, but some of these numbers might get a little bit inflated in players' favor because of being at a pro day. They want to put their players in the best position to succeed at the next level, put the best numbers out there for them. So take it for what it's worth, but I do think he still has legit 4.4 speed that he could run, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he actually ran at a legit combine and got a 4.4 40 out of it. One knock on him does, for me at least, seems to be that he can lack some effort at times when he knows he's not going to get the ball. He might not give you the best kind of effort when it comes to run blocking or anything like that. Just doesn't show that interest level at times, which, I mean, you'd like to see that on a play-to-play basis where even if you're not getting the ball, you at least want to be engaged in the play, right? And of course, we're talking about the wide receiver one in this class, so I'm going to be a little bit critical in terms of certain things, or I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky at this point when we're talking about pretty much the best prospect in this class, in my opinion, and should no doubt be a top 5, top 10 pick within this upcoming draft. So for me, the best landing spot for him, I think, is either between Miami or Detroit. I've seen some mocks put him at Cincinnati. To me, that doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, of course, it would be helpful for Joe Burrow in terms of the receiving game and just giving him more weapons. But I think they really need an offensive lineman. So with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd there, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me for them to go Chase. I think it would make much more sense to bolster that offensive line that Joe Burrow was getting beat up behind. But if Chase managed to land at Miami, it would be a big upgrade for Tua. Give them another receiving threat besides Parker and Will Fuller. You have Mike Gesicki there as well, but you have Will Fuller to stretch the field. Of course, he's the burner, but you have Chase run those under routes and those more physical slants, outs, and that kind of stuff, comebacks, where Tua can still trust him to get the ball in his hands, throw him open, and he'll be able to do something with the ball at that point. Just a great overall prospect. Same with Detroit. Obviously, he'll be probably the number one there without a question in my mind if he were to land in Detroit. Of course, it's a bad defense. Fantasy-wise, he should produce very well. They're going to be down in a lot of games, so he should eat up. He should see a lot of targets if he were to land with the Lions. So either one of those two landing spots, I think, would be great for his fantasy production. And I just can't wait to see really what he does at the next level and how he produces, against other NFL competition. Because obviously playing in the SEC, he played against great DBs, and while he did have some tendency to he did face some corners that he would get jammed, and it would kind of frustrate him a little bit, or at least bother him a little bit. But for the most part, he was able to outmuscle everybody that he was able to play against. So that doesn't bother me at the next level. You're playing against top level competition in college. That won't bother me at the NFL level. Now, the next guy I want to talk about is Devontae Smith out of Alabama, your reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Standing at 6 foot and weighing at 170 pounds, this guy had BMI Twitter all in a rage. Everybody has an opinion on him, but we're here to break them down for you. Last year in 2020, in 12 games, he had 117 catches on 147 targets for 1,800 yards, 1,856 yards to be exact, and 23 touchdowns. So clearly set the world on fire. Of course, like I said, he won the Heisman Trophy and was well deserved when you look at the statistics and what he did for Alabama in their quest for the national championship. So for me, he has the cleanest release off the line of scrimmage in this class. He is such a smooth route runner and such a smooth guy getting off the line. Oftentimes he'll get that quick release from a DB, so he doesn't have to worry too much. I'm not too concerned about press coverage just because of his footwork and how he's able to basically break free from the defense. But he's also going to be really good in terms of wherever he ends up landing, he's going to be very friendly to whatever quarterback he has just because he's such a smart player. So consistently he finds holes in the zone to settle into, whether he's running over the middle and there's just a hole that breaks out in the zone, he'll settle right into it, make himself available for the quarterback. If he has a cover two that he's running a seam against, just makes himself wide available. And also he works back to the quarterback during your scramble drill type plays where not a lot of young receivers are just in tune with doing that. Sometimes they'll kind of just run themselves into coverage on the other side of the field. But Smith, he made himself available plenty for Mac Jones, and of course it helped to show how he produced so much, and that was one of the reasons why. So, if he lands in a place like Miami or something like that where he's working with a young quarterback like Tua, I think obviously they have that old Alabama connection. That would be really helpful. But just his smarts and his savvy, it's clear on film, how he is able to win on a down-to-down basis. And a lot of people have a lot of concerns whether or not he's too small to play at a high level, where he can be a true alpha receiver, true X receiver, or should he be a slot guy. I saw this kid win time after time after time, down after down against the SEC's top defenders and the top corners, and oftentimes he got that top corner on the other side, and he was just able to win so often. So I'm really pulling for this kid. He had to shoulder a lot of the load with Jalen Waddle being out due to his ankle injury, so it didn't slow him down at all. Obviously, clearly he produced. So I really hope for the best for this kid, and I hope that a team obviously sees the talent that he was able to put out there and invest first round draft capital into him, and is really gives him a chance to produce at the next level. Now, following Devontae, let's talk about his teammate at Alabama, Jalen Waddle. 5'9", 180 pounds. Again, another small guy. It's kind of a common theme in this class. A lot smaller guys compared to the bigger guys. But what Jalen Waddle lacks in stature, he absolutely makes up for in speed and is a game breaker. So last year in 2020, he only played 6 games. He had the injury, of course, that we talked about earlier. But in those 6 games, he had 28 catches, 591 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Listen, the Tyreek Hill comps are legit. I'm sure you've heard it from a lot of people. Uh, Nobody wants to compare him to Tyreek Hill. Of course, that's becoming a cliche at this point, but the comps are legit. It's the speed is real. Just the overall athleticism and what he can do against the defense, it's pretty comparable to it. So, of course, he has that elite speed. He didn't run the 40 because of course, he had the injury and he's trying to take care of that. Um, but it would not surprise me at all to see Waddle run a 4.2, 4.3 in that range. Of course, everybody's numbers are inflated now at Pro Day, but that would be one I would actually believe. Um, you put him on the field if he can take a bubble screen or any kind of short throw, a drag, anything like that to the house, quick dump off, anything you want to do with him. He has that speed and athleticism to break away from defenders and just make a big play whenever he really needs to. He actually was in the 96th percentile in terms of yards per catch at 21.1. So, of course, you have that big playability with him. That's always going to be a given. Um, he's close to what Henry Ruggs was prior to that, but I think he's definitely better than Ruggs in terms of just his overall receiver development and his overall repertoire in terms of routes, route running, and just tools that he can use in order to win against the defense. And another thing that is good for him, goes in his favor, is he returned punts and kicks while in college. So a good way to get on the field, a lot of coaches will say this, is you get on special teams. If you can show any kind of athletic ability, you're going to end up on kick return, punt return to basically make a difference for your team. If you can't make it on the field within the regular scheme of an offense, special teams is a good way to break out early, and that if you can show out in that aspect, it's a good way to get on the field on offense. So he did a good amount of return for that. So of course he was one of their big weapons at Alabama. Try to get him the ball as much as possible. Of course, he was hindered a little bit with the injury, but he did try to come back in the national championship game. That was kind of tough to see, but he wanted to play for his boys and help win a national championship. So he got it out there and got some respect from me as far as that goes. He showed some toughness to do that. As far as reaching on an NFL team, he's going to be a first round pick, I think, if early second round at the absolute worst, but I honestly think that he'll end up in the first round. As far as where he ends up landing, I mean, I'd like to see him in New England. That'd be good. You can get a difference maker at the receiving level. Obviously, we have the 2 tight ends going down the middle of the field. It'd be nice to get a field stretcher. I think that he could be a difference maker really anywhere he goes. If somehow he were to end up on the Chiefs or something like that, well, watch out. You have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on opposite sides. That'd be something to see. But that pretty much covers it for Waddle. So moving on to Rashad Bateman. He stands at 6 foot, weighs 190 pounds. Actually, a little bit of a fun fact. During the season, I think he weighed in somewhere around 200, 210. He actually came out afterwards during an interview and said he never really played above 200. So I guess just a little bit of inflation in terms of his weight. But a lot of people kind of see that as a concern. I really don't. But let's dig into what he did in 2019. Of course, last year he had the weird year with the opt-outs and opting back in, so I didn't want to pull those numbers. Over a full season, 13 games in 2019, he had 60 catches on 93 targets for 1,219 yards and 11 touchdowns at Minnesota. So, of course, not playing with the best quarterback or best kind of supporting cast around him, but he was still able to produce. He actually had a breakout age of 18, which I believe was in the 94th or the 96th percentile, but super early breakout age. This guy was actually one of my favorites in this class. This Bateman and the next guy we're going to talk about. But getting back to Bateman, you could argue that he is the probably the safest receiver in this class. In my opinion, he's probably the most well-rounded, where he doesn't have one elite skill that you can really point to or one elite trait that he really has that makes him consistently win from down to down, but he does everything really, really well. So some people might see that as a kind of a down to him where he doesn't have that super elite skill in terms of something you can really point to, but he's just a very good all-around receiver, kind of like a Robert Woods type, or I think his ceiling could be a Stephon Diggs in terms of what he could do at the next level and where he ends up going, what kind of situation he ends up being in. But really great guy. You put the film on, and he's such a smooth route runner. Constantly was able to get free against defenders, or even if it was a contested catch situation, he was winning at the catch point. Again, like I said, he's not dealing with the best quarterback that he could be in terms of what he's working with, but he was able to make do with what he had and working against other DBs. He was just such a smooth route runner and such a smooth receiver to really watch and watch produce, and it was just really a thing of beauty. Now, he's another guy that I think has first round talent, but I do think he'll probably end up slipping to the end of the first round, maybe early second round. But my main fear, what I suspect is going to end up happening for Bateman, and what I'm kind of fearing for him from a fantasy perspective, is that he does end up in Baltimore, just because that offense is so run based. It's something that they could, from a football perspective, they could really use. They need that alpha receiver. They signed Sammy Watkins in the offseason during the free agency period, but they really need more receiving weapons and more tools that Lamar can use in the passing game to really develop that offense. And Bateman could help with that. I'd be curious to see how they use him, but if he could land anywhere else, somewhere like a Detroit, like a Jamar Chase type situation where he could really eat Miami, that could be another good spot for him. But for some reason, I get the feeling that Baltimore is going to end up snagging him at the end of the round and trying to develop their passing game in that way. And hopefully it works out for him. Time will tell as far as that goes. But like I said, he's one of my favorite receivers in this class. And lastly, we're going to come to really, I think, my 1A, my 1B to Bateman's 1A in terms of my favorites for this class is going to be Rondale Moore out of Purdue. Now, Rondale, he's definitely a little guy. 5'7", 181 pounds. Of course, a lot of people are going to use that against him in terms of can he really produce at the next level. I'm really interested to see what he does, but let's kind of break down his stats from his last full season and go from there. That was in 2018. He had 13 games played, 114 catches. He had 1,258 yards and 12 touchdowns. So, of course, he was able to produce in a big way. The last 2 years, last year was a COVID problem. He had a little bit of back and forth where he opted out, opted back in. Of course, everybody knows last year was kind of a mess. But he also battled injuries. He had a hamstring injury between 2019 and 2020, so that kind of bothered him a little bit, and he kind of just hit a point where I think his camp really just kind of told him, you're good to go to the NFL. You have a future. You're producing, and don't risk further injury, or don't risk your season really, or any kind of career type injury for pushing this really for no reason. Purdue wasn't going anywhere. Their program isn't exactly known for football, but of course, that's where he ended up going to school, and he made best with what he could. So for me, it's the breakout age at 18 years old. This kid stepped on the field, freshman, fresh out of high school, put up those numbers, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. He was immediately a game changer. And you turn on the film, and it's just speed, 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 crazy athletic freak. Just a really fun kid to watch when he has the ball in his hands. And I really hope that he uses the whole thing where people are doubting him in terms of his stature, and uses that as a kind of a chip on his shoulder in order to really produce at the next level. Yeah, one comp that I've heard I really agree with, and I think it's really good for him, is Steve Smith. A lot of people knocked him for being 5'9", said he couldn't play on the outside and match up against DBs, and of course he shut everybody up in terms of that and produced at a very high level. I would love to see Rondale Moore kind of have that similar career arc and that kind of impact and really see what he does out on the field. I'd like to see him um, probably in Green Bay. I think that'd be a really good place where he doesn't necessarily have to be the alpha or true outside receiver. I think he can be, but he doesn't necessarily have to be. And he could probably play a slot role within Green Bay. Of course, you're going to have Aaron Rodgers throwing you the ball. You're going to get plenty of opportunities. I'm sure he'll get opportunities in jet sweeps, reverses, any kind of short bubble screens, stuff over the middle, and just get the ball in his hands. Kind of, again, like a Jalen Waddle type. Get the ball in his hands and just watch him work. And I think he'll be very fantasy relevant for somebody's team. I think he could be a good steal too. A lot of people he's at first he was I was seeing him in mocks at the end of the first round. Now I'm starting to see him slip into the second round. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up landing and what kind of situation he ends up being in, and really see if he can produce at the next level. I'm really pulling for the kid, so we'll see how it goes. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's at Money Over Blitzes. Make sure to give the video a like, leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to talk about. The plan is to go over running backs just before the NFL draft starts. So we're right around the corner. It's coming before you know it. And if you listen on any kind of podcast service, make sure to leave a rating, and feel free to subscribe on the podcast as well. This way you get the content every week. And also follow us on Twitter at Money Over Blitzes. This is where I'm putting out content on a more daily basis, seeing how things break out, on a day-to-day basis, and things, different news items come up and whatnot. It's kind of where we talk about them, and also other trades and whatnot that are going on in my dynasty leagues right now. So things are moving, draft picks are moving, the NFL draft is coming up. I'm here for all of it. Football is going to be here. Absolutely a big fan. So thanks for listening, and catch you guys on the next one. Peace.